Waiters, waitresses, what's the most disrespectful thing a customer has said or done while you served them? As a former waitress, I was called a slut. I was a waitress at the time I was pregnant with my firstborn, and a customer yelled at me and said I don't want to be served by an unmarried slut. I'm guessing because he didn't see a ring or whatever, but why was that his business? All eyes were on me and I ran off and cried. Being a waitress was so difficult. I was bartending. Did last call. 10 minutes later a drunk woman comes up to the bar asking me for another drink. I tell her I'm sorry, but we already did last call. She then throws what was left of her drink at me outdoor bar, plastic cups. So I picked up the soda gun and sprayed her with 7-Up. She complained to my manager, who though it was funny and told me never to do it again. Edit, spelling. I waited on Motley Crue once while working at Denny's late night 22 years ago. They left me 4 tip on a 50 bill that included change that included pennies. I have many more stories, but I guess that's the worst one. Some drunk asshole asked me how I got into being a waiter. I told him that despite having a degree and a good major, I couldn't find any jobs in the field. He then proceeded to lecture me about how I don't know enough about life, and that's why I can't find a job. Bear in mind that I was 29 and had lived in 3 different countries, paying my own way the whole time, so clearly, I knew nothing about the world. After the unprompted lecture, I went to my boss and said either you handle serving him or there's going to be a problem. I was that insulted and disgusted. I don't know where that guy is now, but I hope he steps on a Lego every day for the rest of his life. I worked in a restaurant through my last year in high school. I was 18, so I was allowed to be a server. I had a table come in, 2 guys and 2 girls. Must have been a double date. Anyways, the 2 guys got incredibly drunk. Eventually, they started yelling across the floor to get my attention. They continued to do this and request more beers x 200B. The manager told me not to give them any more alcohol, and when I told them this, they flipped out. One of them threw his chair and the other cursed out the manager and I. The girls were not impressed. I hope they didn't get laid. Followed me home after my shift, walked into my apartment, and propositioned me for sex. Some albany called out to get my attention one time. Little girl, little girl. I was in my late 20s at the time, and it took every ounce of willpower in my body not to respond with yes, old hag. Sometime in my youth, when I was 25 years old, I suffered something very bad. A drunk boy who was sitting at the table with his girlfriend asked me to bring beer and water for his girlfriend said, and done. When I brought him water and beer, he took the beer and poured it on my breasts. Everything ended well, in the sense that another customer drunker than him saw and came to his table to then pour beer on his girlfriend's breasts as revenge. Had a guy come in with his 2 daughters. They all ordered ribs, and when I came to take their dishes, he started cracking dad jokes to embarrass his daughters and even cracked jokes with me. All in all, it was wholesome and friendly. When I asked if there was anything else he needed, he laughed and said maybe box these bones up for my dog. Whole table laughs and I kind of chuckle. Took their dishes to the back and threw the bones and finished food away. When I bring him his check, he asks where the bones were. I apologized and said I thought he was joking and I threw them away. He told me to get my manager and proceeds to chew him out for hiring dumb employees. When the manager offered to go grab the bones, the customer pointed at me and yelled, "Make this idiot do it, he caused this." I brought him his bones and he left me a .01 tip. This was maybe 15 years ago and I don't miss waiting tables. Asked to dance on the table. In a fine dining restaurant, I gave the table to the bodybuilder guy on staff and made sure he got bank on his other tables, since he took one of mine. Well worth it. I'd much rather if you didn't bring the food out. Such a blow to my self-esteem. It wasn't me, but I observed a guy at a blackjack table at casino reach up under cocktail waitress uniform skirt and grab her pussy. When I brought the food out, the little girl said, "Thank you." The mother responded, "You don't have to thank her, honey, that's her job." I was standing at a table of 12 when a guy reached over and untied my apron, which fell on the floor. I felt like I had been pantsed. A group of men each asked me if I was clean, and yes, I know what it means. 2 men had been tipping per round of drinks, and at the end of the night they realized they were broke, so demanded their tips back. When I said no, they threatened to wait for me in the parking lot after I got off work. Busy lunch service, I turn around to a guest putting something in my hands, suddenly realized it was a very full diaper. I'm taking the order for a large party, and from behind me I hear a guy snapping his fingers and whistling. Not even my table, but he wanted his check. I walk over and start looking under his chairs and table, and when he asked me what I was doing, I told him I'm looking for the dog you've obviously just lost. When I worked fast food, I had a regular customer come in uber drunk one night and grab my boob over the counter. Not long before, a guy was naked in my drive-thru and I'm enjoying his own company. Yeah, I quit soon afterwards. I tip based on the size of your tits, so it looks like you are fuck out of luck. I used to be a server, but the best example I have actually happened when I was a customer. Out to brunch with my boyfriend and two of his army buddies. They were in from out of town. One of them I'd met before. He was alright, but definitely rough around the edges. I don't usually mind crude humor. So whatever. We're at brunch at a super trendy, packed place. Waitress comes by and gets drink orders. Dude in question asked for coffee. Had already been kinda flirting with her, calling her darling and whatnot. She asks, would you like any cream? He replies, only if it comes out of you. I'm still so embarrassed that typing this out brings all the shame back. Literally everyone at the table kind of balked and sputtered and started apologizing. I still don't even really know what he meant. Breast milk? Come? But no Sam, no. They slammed their hands on the table and said we need plates. Whilst my hands were full, I said I'm bringing them in a harsh way because they deserved it. Long story short, I got yelled at and was told I was the meanest person they have ever met. I gave my notice in a week later. I started as a waitress and am now a bartender. I've had a pedophile tell me I had the body of a 17-year-old. I was 22 at the time, and then he went on to tell me about his sexcapades in Asian countries. I've had countless drunk people call me every insult under the sun, including the N-word. I am not black. I don't even look at. I've had grown-ass men 3x the size of me tell me they'll kick my ass. I'm 51 petite. I've had miserable Karens accuse me of wanting their ugly, gross husbands. Usually I have the bouncers kick out all the idiots and sometimes call the police to deal with them. Have only had this happen though once, thank goodness. It's been about 20 years and my response wouldn't be as amiable. A guest at the booth behind the table I was talking to actually reached behind themselves to grab my arm for whatever dinner-related bullshit they needed. I instinctively recoil and return my attention to the table I was actually tending to at that time. But that gall to grab me for whatever you may have needed was medically important was searing. Also had a guy throw his finger in my face about undercooked chicken. Not downplaying the effects of undercooked chicken, but man, don't be rude. We are all doing the best we can. Shit, rabbit hole. Also had a guy on a date get so pissy that I had cut him off that we had to call the cops on him. UGH, I have way too many stories about terrible people.